Hey friend, you aren't leaving your firm just to work nonstop and make less money.
You wanted freedom, fulfillment, and a practice that actually supports your life.
Welcome to Off the Clock, the podcast for lawyers and law firm owners who are ready to break up with the billable hour
and build a profitable, joyful, client-loving practice that loves you back.
We're Gwen Griggs
and Whitney Harper,
lawyers, law firm founders, and co-creators of Advos Pro.
Each episode, we share stories, strategies, and bold steps to help you stop surviving and start thriving on your own terms.
So let's get you off the clock and into a practice you're meant to build.
Gwen, I am so excited for today's conversation. I love all of our conversations, but this one's a really interesting one, I think, for solo and small firm lawyers who are trying to sort of figure out what is the scope of their practice. And there's always this push-pull between generalist and like specialist and being the go-to in a particular field. And so today we're going to kind of explore that. And I'm curious, what other framings you've heard for, but sometimes we hear the generalist lawyer referred to as like the threshold lawyer, which I have said that to people who don't know the term and they're like, what? A threshold lawyer? What does that mean? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the threshold lawyer concept?
Yes, this is going to be a really, really great conversation. And where we first heard it is a lawyer taking any work that comes through the threshold. And we see it happen with, especially when you first launch the firm and you might have had some experience somewhere else, but revenue is such a big driver and there's so much fear around, will I make enough revenue, that a lot of people will take whatever crosses the threshold. So
yeah, I'm licensed, you want to pay me, and sure, I'll figure it out.
Right. And the truth is we are trained to learn things, right? We're trained to spot issues and learn, and we've got great resources. But we really would question, right? Is that what is going to build the most profitable, the most joyful, the most impactful law firm?
Yeah. And I think what we've discovered in our practice is that really like niching down, getting clear about what we are great at. And the Jim Collins, what are you best in the world at?
Right. Love Jim Collins. Yes.
But also, what are we not going to try to be great at? And that has served us really well. And you and I were talking about this earlier, that it's not like it's bad to be a generalist or even to start as a generalist, but that it's a bit of an evolution. You were sort of making the point about how you figure out what you're going to be the go-to at is some exploration, which is probably feels a little like being a generalist, right?
Absolutely. And I think about us. We launched the firm and really started to focus on early stage businesses and startups. Mm-hmm. And it was the experience of starting in areas that, we'd been general counsels of larger companies, right? That was not the work that we had a tremendous amount of experience, but it was an extension of what we knew and knew comfortably. And it was the experience, having that experience, that helped us learn, right, side by side, looking at, if I do this work, right, this is easy, it comes natural, we're serving the client really well, compared to if I'm trying to do the work that we ended up doing a little bit more of, which was more second stage, that it just, following the path, experimenting, and then following the path that is easy and profitable.
Yeah. And I think it takes a little bit of that trial and error to build the confidence in the stuff that you really do love doing, so that you can battle that fear of, if I don't say yes to every opportunity, I'm not going to have the revenue, right? That fear is real, and I totally get it.
Right. Especially when you're first starting out, right? Revenue, right? That's what pays the bills. You need to make the revenue. And so experimenting does make sense. I think one other thing that's really an interesting thought exercise for people is what what does specialization even mean?
Yeah.
And we see all over websites, right? Like law firm that does real estate or trust and estates, or like the practice area. We've been taught, here's this practice. We took courses when we were in law school, right? That contracts or securities, right? The thing we do. And I find it so interesting because a lot of clients don't know, don't understand the differences, don't know what they need. Um, and so we think a lot in terms of specialization with who is your ideal client,
Yeah.
not what do you do, because that's talking about me and what do I
Yeah.
do, but instead, who do we serve really, really well?
Yeah. And then, I think if you get clear on that, you actually can speak to your client in a way that they hear loud and clear, even if they don't understand all the nuances of what kind of law you practice or how you do what you do. When they can tell that you're speaking to them and you are for them and you really understand them, and your marketing is less me, and more like client focused, that really serves you well, and it becomes a magnet for those clients. And so that niching down, getting clear on the client, and then being able to speak their language to them about them instead of about you, um, does the opposite of what everyone's scared of, right? You get scared that you're niching down and you're going to say no to revenue, but actually what you're doing is becoming a magnet for that revenue that is the right revenue, which is amazing.
Yes, that is so powerful. So powerful.
Tell me about the lighthouse. I love your kind of commentary about the lighthouse analogy.
You know what? It's funny because borrowing from like business concepts, right? When we first started actually the first time I started a firm. So I had only been in big law doing the specialty that I had been designated in the department that I had been designated, and then general counsel. And so the first time I started a business was a law firm and read a book, Attracting Perfect Clients. And it had this visual of being a lighthouse. And being that lighthouse, you stand on the shore and you attract, to your point, Whitney, right? You're attracting, you're standing very tall, you're very, very clear, and the right clients and connections are going to see you because you're standing so clearly in that in what you do really well, versus this is such a powerful visual to me, versus running around on the shore with a flashlight, right? And those flashlights like are going to be harder to see, and lots of different people are going to see it, and you're just not going to stand out and be able to command really pricing, right? Command the pricing that you deserve
Yeah.
because you have invested so much in understanding the problems of your ideal client. But first is really getting clear on who your ideal client is, and that visual of the lighthouse of who your ideal client is. I think that's and being very clear about who you want to serve
Yeah.
is really
Yeah.
powerful.
I
So
think that's huge.
So Whitney, tell us a little bit about what you see happen when a law firm gets really clear about who they serve well and specialize right in that niche.
Yeah. I love the interplay between us, because I know your first line of thought about this question goes to marketing and the ideal client and who do we serve well. And my first line of thought goes to profitability.
I know we are
The bottom
perfectly
line.
matched,
Yes. Yeah.
perfectly matched.
Because
Yes,
really, if you can be very clear about the work that you are going to do so well, um, and really build that domain expertise in, then if you're a generalist and you are really going to say yes to anything that comes across your threshold, you kind of have to learn each thing every time you do it. You've got to relearn, brush up, or it's brand new and you literally have to go learn it. And that's super inefficient for you and likely for your client, not terribly cost effective. And it may also mean that you're not delivering the best outcomes for your client because you just haven't been in that area long enough. You haven't developed that domain expertise so deeply. And if you can specialize, then you can start to build those playbooks, the checklists, the templates, the efficiency and processes that can let you be really profitable, particularly if you're not billing by the hour. If you are billing on a value basis and you can build in some efficiency, you can watch your profits skyrocket. And that really doesn't work well if you don't have a clear delineation of what you do and what you don't. And you can also build that expertise and then deliver it without exhausting yourself, right? There's the profit side, the dollars, but there's also just the energy and the enjoyment of the practice and the whether the practice is sucking the life out of you or giving life back to you. And to me, that running around trying to figure it out every time, everything is new. Um, it's interesting for a little while, and then it's exhausting.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to back up just for a second too, because we've been throwing around that idea of an ideal client,
Mm-hmm.
and we see people misunderstand that concept too. So I think the really understanding who your ideal client is, in terms of what are their pain points and how are you the solution for their pain point, and where do they gather, and who knows them, right? There's a lot of exercises you can do, but the deeper you can be, the clearer you can be, the picture in your mind, like you're having a conversation with your ideal client, but it's not just that they can pay, right?
Right.
Right. And it's not just that they're, like kind to your team, right? There's more. If you really want to be able to find those ideal clients, perfect match, I think about the client journey or the customer journey, right? Like if you have plugged in to where that customer is, you're going to find them. They're going to find you. You're going to magnetize them. Everyone in the community is going to know you're the go-to for this, right? And they're just going to come, and you're going to
Yeah.
answer the phone and have that meeting, and they're going to say yes. It's remarkable. Or you're going to get the opportunity to say no, which is
Right.
also really
Yeah.
remarkable.
It makes it so much easier for people to give you good referrals too. I hear a lot of people say like they're churning time talking to potential new clients who aren't a great fit, or you're just getting lots of referrals that don't feel, thanks for the referral, but that's not really what I do or who I serve. And when you can be super clear about what you do and who you serve best, and then lead with that when you're building those referral relationships, it makes it so easy for people to know where it's worth their time to make the referral, and that you're going to be able to take great care of that person. And so they're going to feel really good about making the referral, and not just sort of like, well, maybe this will work, maybe it won't. Like they will know you're the one. And that is it's such a great sales pipeline, because when people are referred by someone they already trust, they're more than likely going to say yes when you propose to them. Right.
Absolutely. It just makes the entire, back to the customer journey, and where are the friction points, and where can you eliminate friction points? Because every time you eliminate friction points, you're making more money, right? You're enjoying the practice more because you have really good fit clients.
Yeah. I think it's also about, and you mentioned client experience. It's also about value to the client. And I think a lot of clients may not understand that a lawyer's not a lawyer, not a lawyer, right? That there's some value in getting the right specialty for the right project. But we've definitely seen some transactions and some interactions where a generalist on the other side, or on our client's side with us, has caused a little turmoil.
Right.
I know you've got a great one to tell us about.
Right. Well, I think one of the ones that, as we were preparing for this and thinking of the stories and the examples that would be understandable and memorable, we sometimes represent the buyer in a transaction, and maybe a year or so ago, had a situation where the seller had run his business for however long and went to a lawyer to handle the sale of the business, the asset purchase agreement. And the lawyer he went to meet with was truly a real estate lawyer. And if you looked at the website, you could see that predominantly the work they do was real estate. And when he marked up the purchase agreement, he marked it up the way you would mark up a purchase and sale agreement in real estate, which is not the way an asset transaction works. And honestly, on the other side, it was sort of heartbreaking because the seller had negotiated the letter of intent, had a purchase price, right? Like believed they were selling the business, and hiring the wrong lawyer in that situation killed the deal. Because we were so far apart in the purchase agreement, and our client was like, we're not going to get there. We're not going to get this lawyer to understand that his client is going to have to put schedules together and going to have to disclose things and going to make representations because the business was predominantly intangible asset. It wasn't a piece of real estate, where you can go do a
survey,
phase one survey, right? And see all the things, and you're making no representations. It's just, it's a different mindset, but it's kind of heartbreaking, because how would that client have known that they weren't hiring the right fit? But at the end of the day, the deal died because of it.
Yeah.
So that's an example of things that it's tough to watch.
Yeah. We had some investment bankers actually who have brought us in on transactions because they've seen that happen. And we have a lot of, smaller business, great local businesses who have kind of the hometown lawyer who's probably done a really good job for them on their day to day, and is a corporate lawyer and does the thing, but doesn't do M&A work. And it sounds like it's corporate work, and that's fine. Thankfully, the investment banking team knew better and said, we need this team in as well, because they have this specialty and they understand the art of the deal. And we were able to partner with the more generalist or the corporate lawyer, and in various cases. And that has worked really beautifully. So it doesn't always have to be that you can't do the work if you're not in that specialty area. It often just means you need to find the right kind of pairing. So there's more than one way to get there. I think when interesting work is at your door and you want to be part of it, but it's not your area of expertise.
Yeah, and I think there's like the natural extension, because I do believe a lot of lawyers became lawyers because they like to learn, they like to grow, they like to stretch themselves, right? And so I think you could argue we're a little generalist with a very specific ideal client, but we also know when the answer is no, like the work we don't know. And so share a little bit about some of the things we get asked to do, and we're a for sure no.
People have, not just clients asking us to do things, but also people whose opinions we really respect about business and law firms and all the things, or who just care a lot about us and want to see us to be successful, and who say, well, if your ideal client, in our case, is a business owner, then you should think about all the things that business owner might need and kind of have this horizontal expansion of your services. You should do trust and estates work, and you should do tax work or real estate work or whatever. And we've just been really clear that we're going to do the corporate transactional work of the ordinary course and the M&A and the cap raising. We're not going to try to get into those other areas, because they really do deserve deep expertise, and our clients deserve the best in those areas. And for us to get there, like, I'm not interested in another 20 years of trying to be a domain expert in those areas, but I know the people who are and who have done it really well. And so that's, those areas where we've said, this is really a specialized area, and we will do our clients a disservice if we try to say yes to that work And that, I think, for us has been kind of the guiding light of we're gonna deliver tremendous work for our clients, work that our clients deserve to have. And if it's an area that has expertise that we don't have and can't really easily figure out, we're going to partner with someone else who can help and bring to bear what the client really needs.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And like real estate too, right? Yes, we represent businesses, but we are not going to try to handle your real estate transaction.
Yeah.
There's just enough specialty there and title work, et cetera, that is, we can't be back to Jim Collins. Like, we can't be the best in the world at that. And so all of our systems, all of the ways we handle things are not built for that. So
right.
Built for that optimization and to your point, profitability.
Yep. And you go back to that theory of, well, there's revenue to be had if you can expand. There might be, but the cost of that revenue is us having to distract ourselves from doing the work we're already great at in order to go get great at this other work, and the friction of systems that aren't built for it and all those things. And instead, we can just invest that effort and that time in doubling down on what we're great at, finding more of our already ideal clients, and getting more of the work that's already kind of smooth and easy in our world. And that is where I want to be.
Absolutely.
Definitely where I want to be.
Yeah, it makes everything smoother, right? From client acquisition and referrals, all of that.
So Gwen, before we wrap up, question for you, because I think it's always great to leave these with a really clear kind of action step. If you were talking to a lawyer who is sort of in that generalist spot and thinking after this conversation, gosh, I really should start thinking about being the go-to, the domain expert in an area, what would you say is something specific, actionable they could do this quarter to start moving toward being the go-to in their space?
That is a fantastic, really fantastic question. And what I would say to them is to look back to the last 6 months, year, 2 years, and do an archaeology dig, right? Like, think about who are the clients, who are the people you served, who are the referral sources even that you really, really enjoyed serving, that they saw the value, they appreciated the work you did, and they paid you well for it. And figure out how to replicate that, right? Find those bright spots and build on them. And the corollary to that too is when you're in that archaeology dig and you're looking back at your clients and the profitability of the clients, and it doesn't have to be scientific, right? You know, when you sent the bill, was it a fair bill, and did they pay without question?
Yep.
Also look at the ones where that wasn't the case, right? They debated you about the fee or challenged you about the work you were doing or second guessed the work you were doing or whatever, myriad of reasons that clients aren't a great fit for the lawyer. Because every time you say yes to that money, you're saying no to the money that is a great fit. So that incremental, just little by little, getting much more clear about who you serve really well, that there's an incredible ripple effect there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been such a fun conversation. I hope it was really helpful to everybody who is listening, just to get the thoughts started about generalists versus being the go-to, and what might be the right fit for them in their practice. Thanks, Gwen.
That's fantastic. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us on Off the Clock. If you're ready to design a law practice that's profitable, joyful, and built around your life, not just your clients,
come check out The Path to Promance and take the Promance scorecard at advospro.com.
And if this episode spoke to you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another lawyer who needs to hear it.
You deserve a practice that loves you back. Let's build it together.